Welcome to another video from Demystifying Proposals. Our mission is to break down the proposal process and make proposals make sense. In this video, we talk about how to make proposals compelling, offering a detailed process view of how to make sure your proposal has those elements that make it compelling. As always, the first thing we talk about is the basics. So, what do we mean by compelling? The government looks for strengths, weaknesses, and deficiencies. Strengths and weaknesses can also be termed significant strengths or significant weaknesses. The point of the things that you do to make a proposal compelling is to emphasize what you believe are your strengths and significant strengths. Ways to make a proposal compelling include, first and foremost, obviously, a compliant proposal. The evaluators won't even bother to look for your strengths if they don't see your proposal as compliant. Secondly, it's important to have a well-written and formatted proposal. The evaluators will judge how your company is likely to perform the work by how the proposal reads and looks. Next, having strong win themes that come through in reading the proposal, often shown throughout the proposal in call-out boxes. And finally, having strong proof points, quantifiable and qualitative information you can point to say you've done this work before and well. As a reminder, here are a couple of slides on the government evaluation process. The first step in the government evaluation process is to review the proposal for compliance based on the proposal instructions, usually found in Section L. Non-compliance generally will kick a proposal out of any further review. The next step is to divide the proposal between the Technical Evaluation Panel, or TEP, and a cost evaluation team. The TEP reviews compliant proposals against the evaluation criteria, usually found in Section M. Prior to the kickoff, the TEP chair will create the evaluation score sheet that the TEP will use to document their assessment of the proposal. The score sheet is the statement of work requirements, or the SOW requirements, the proposal instructions, and the evaluation criteria. The contracting officer will use the TEP's evaluation as the basis for the source selection document once they get to that phase of the government evaluation process. On the other side, for the cost volume, the cost evaluation panel reviews the cost proposal for cost realism, risks, and assumptions. While Section M, or the evaluation criteria, may have an evaluation scheme, such as excellent, very good, good, poor, or weak, ultimately, the TEP will use strengths, weaknesses, and deficiencies when they do their scoring. This leads to comparative scorings, such as XX proposal had 3 significant strengths, 2 strengths, and 3 weaknesses, while YY's proposal had 2 significant strengths, 4 strengths, and 2 weaknesses. The proposal's goal is to have as many significant strengths as possible, and as few weaknesses as possible. Your strengths come from your win themes, your features and benefits, clear, structured approaches, and proof points. Weaknesses come from unsubstantiated claims, unclear solutions, and undefined approaches. Deficiencies can kill a proposal's chance to win an award. Here are the definitions of strengths, weaknesses, and deficiencies taken from an evaluation by the government. So a strength is an aspect of an offeror's proposal that has merit or exceeds specified performance or capability requirements in a way that will be advantageous to the government during contract performance. Weaknesses means a flaw in the proposal that increases the risk of unsuccessful contract performance. A deficiency is a material failure of the proposal to meet a government requirement or a combination of significant weaknesses in a proposal that increases the risk of unsuccessful contract performance to an unacceptable level. Proposal outlines are the first step in developing a compelling proposal. First and foremost, follow the outline. Lots of proposal writers, particularly subject matter experts, want to tell the story they want to tell it in the order that they're comfortable with. But the government doesn't care what you think the order should be. Yes, the order may not make sense. Doesn't matter. They don't care. So follow the outline created by the proposal manager when you're writing. If you think there's a compliance problem, however, do bring that up because proposal managers are human and sometimes we make mistakes. But compliance is number one. As I usually say, if you don't submit a compliant proposal, you've wasted a lot of time and money and you shouldn't have bothered. The next element of compelling is formatting and editing. Good writing is part of compelling. Remember, the government will look at your proposal and take it as an example of the kind of work that you'll be doing for them should you win the work. So, within the constraints of the proposal instructions and the evaluation criteria, your proposal does need to, quote, tell a good story. Make sure your solution is clear, that you don't have to be an expert in it to see the value. Remember, it's highly likely not everyone on the evaluation board, the TEP, will be an expert in whatever technology you might be touting. Make sure your approach is presented in a step-by-step way so it's easy to follow. And whenever possible, assign the work to whoever will actually be doing it, not always to the whole team. Make the work personal to your team. Show your commitment. For example, the program manager will be the point of contact for the government. He or she will organize and lead program discussions. Or the quality manager will oversee the QA process and ensure all staff are trained on whatever your process is. Think about this, particularly in responding to the statement of work or the performance work statement. Editing always takes more time than you think it's going to. A basic rule of thumb is an hour for each 4 to 5 pages for a good copy edit. If your edit is also going to require cutting down text to get the proposal within page count, assume that into your calculation as well. It's going to take longer to do that than just a copy edit would take. If your edit is going to mean getting the proposal into, quote, one voice, which most good editors will want to do, then that also will slow down the editing process. Assume it's going to take more time than you think it's going to. A good editor is worth their weight in gold. Do they know the difference between insure, ensure, and assure? Their knowing the basics of grammar should be the first requirement for a good editor. But do they know the context of the proposal? Familiarity with the solution will enhance their edit. And it's imperative they know the RFP. Proposals should use the same language as the RFP, the request for proposal. So is it a program or is it a project? Do they use lifecycle as 2 words or 1 word? Do they have a software development lifecycle or a software development lifecycle or a system development lifecycle? Is cybersecurity 2 words or 1 word? These are all things that your editor should be paying attention to when they do their edit of the proposal. It's also highly likely that your editor is going to end up with questions that need to be answered before the proposal can be finalized. So if you save editing for the end of the proposal process, you're going to be out of time to get discrepancies, unclear text, etc., resolved before submission. Factor that into your schedule so that you can be ready. Another important part of the editing process is acronym checking. Has every acronym been spelled out on first use? Is the proposal likely to be broken up in evaluation such that you should redefine acronyms in all sections? The answer for a multi-volume proposal is always yes for each volume. You should start to redefine your acronyms in each volume, treat it as its own document. If you're using a lot of acronyms, think about how readable the proposal will be to somebody who has to look up the acronyms over and over. Not to mention that might become annoying. So consider using an acronym list if you have lots of unique acronyms and if the acronym list will not be counted against your page limits. Formatting. In a perfect world, the proposal writers will have used the same styles, fonts, and sizes as are required. The proposal template should have these defined for the writers to use. However, we all know that we pull in text from other proposals, which may or may not have had the same parameters. So it's important for compelling to have the proposal look good, and it's part of compliance to use the right font and the right margins because those are part of your proposal instructions. So it can take a desktop publisher several hours to format a 10-page proposal. They have to apply the styles, ensure the graphics are all the final versions, ensure tables and graphics have captions. Usually tables are preceded by a caption while captions follow a graphic. This is all part of what the desktop publisher will need to do. If you're counting on DTP to fix a page count issue, then they will need even more time. It's better if your proposal is already within page count when it goes to desktop publishing. Sometimes, in order to save time in your schedule, people recommend doing editing and formatting concurrently. Our stance is don't do it. The editor will be making changes that may have an effect on the formatting of the proposal. If you've asked the editor to work on getting the proposal within page count, and you've asked desktop publishing to do the same, then they will be working at the same thing from two different angles, and that will just create chaos. Instead, make these activities sequential. Edit first. This includes getting issues resolved before the document goes to desktop publishing, and then format second. When you talk about proposals and compelling, most people think of win themes and discriminators. A good win theme is something your solution brings that the customer particularly needs. So, in a perfect world, win themes should be determined during capture. What are the customer's hot buttons? Why is the customer doing this procurement? What do you know about the current solution, assuming there is one? How does your solution or approach or proposal meet these needs? Win themes should be vetted with the customer if at all possible. Will they resonate with him or her or the people who are going to be doing the evaluation? It's important to understand what the customer might think about your win themes. Win themes should be things that will show up as significant strengths in your proposal. So here are some ways to make win themes actionable. Okay. Lots of companies develop win themes and capture, and then they never check that they are actually used in the proposal, or they are only used in the executive summary and then never again. In good proposal writing, each section should have at least one win theme. Think of it as the takeaway. What do you want the evaluators to remember about this section? Ask the proposal writers which win theme they are using for their section. If they don't know, talk it through and find one. Don't assume the win theme will, quote, come through. Explicitly state it. Often, using call-out boxes is a good way to get your win themes across. If you're very page constrained, you may have to incorporate your win themes into the text and bold them, or bold on italics, so they stand out. A word about call-out boxes. Call-out boxes are often used to emphasize whatever you think will most resonate with the evaluators, your win themes, your proof points, your solutioning. But call-out boxes should stand out on their own. You can use phrases or whole sentences, and you can have a call-out title or not. Whatever you do, be consistent and have all call-outs follow the same structure. But call-out boxes should be used sparingly. use 1 or 2 per section, they lose their effectiveness if they're overused, and they require the reader to, quote, leave the main solution or approach to read, and they interrupt the flow of reading. Discriminators. It's very hard to have discriminators and even harder to have differentiators. A discriminator is something your company does better than anyone else, and that's very hard to prove and often very subjective. A differentiator is something only your company can claim. It's almost impossible. But if you have one, make hay of it, use it. It's gold. That being said, you should try to include in your proposal anything that your company brings to the solution that others may not. Examples of these might be CMMI Level 5 or an ISO 9001 certification. That's quality assurance, or an ISO 27001, which is the IT systems certification. Defined standardized processes are also good to tout. Don't forget proof points. A proof point is where you back up your solution with an example of where you've done the work before. It doesn't have to be exactly the same solution, though that helps. It does have to be close. You can't use just anything. Also, make sure the customer for the project used as a proof point would feel good if called to ask about your performance. Remember, government folks know each other. The best proof points come from the same projects the proposal is using as past performance. So the evaluators already know and should be able to see that the experience is comparable, same size, scope, and complexity. And the different proposal sections reflect the same strengths. That reinforces them. Every major proposal section should have several proof points. You don't need a proof point for every step of the approach, but the more you can show that you've done this before and successfully, the higher the likelihood the evaluators will believe you can do it again, and they'll score you as a strength. And that's compelling, right? So make sure your proof points are believable. We're best at this is not believable nor provable. Whenever possible, quantified information is best. We improve time to respond by X. We reduce the backlog by X. Our CPARS was excellent in all evaluated categories. Whatever you can use to prove that the work that you did for another customer was successful qualifies as a proof point. But the language of a proof point isn't just, we did this here. The language of the proof point has to meet the so what test. So you did the same work for a different customer. So what? Did you get good CPARs? Did you win the recompete? Did you do the work faster? Did you do the work more efficiently? Did you improve the process? That is your proof point. Not just we did this here, but how we did it and why it made a difference to the customer. Here are some examples of proof points. In our work for Name the Project, our CMMI Level 5 processes assured the end users and then a benefit, right? Or you can use a different standardized process. Maybe you have ISO 9001 and you have a standardized QA process. And maybe that is what you use to compel the information, to make it compelling. Or our programmer has previously led teams of XX people to develop XX learning XX CPARs, right? Fill in the number of people. Hopefully that's about the same number of people you'll be using on this project. Whatever they're developing is hopefully the same as on this proposal. And then the fact that you got good CPARs, that is proof, right? Our team won XX award for our work doing XX using the same approach, right? Again, you're looking for the so what. Why is it important that you did this work? What was the value to your customer? Well, in this case, you got an award for it. Great. That's wonderful proof point. Or the last example here, our agile process led to implementation of minimum value products XX faster than before, or an improved user experience by something that's quantifiable. So those are examples of proof points. We hope that this step-by-step approach to how to make your proposals compelling was compelling to you. And if it was, please like this video and share it. Thank you.